a capacity builder, we are really involved in the CHA Gives Giving Tuesday planning effort. So for many of y'all probably know about CHA Gives. Some of you might be newbies who are just here to learn more for the first time. But basically, we have been, informally, a group of us has been kind of organizing Giving Tuesday around a community campaign here in Chattanooga for 6 years. This will be the 7th year. And it is run, just to kind of level set, it is totally volunteer run. There's no staff person who's like staffing it or building that website. There's a committee of us who are all just involved and believe in the power of Giving Tuesday for our community. And really just encourage you to be a part of that. If you want to get more involved with the committee and the planning, feel free to reach out over the contact information on the website. And the website for that is chagives.org. So again, when I stop talking, we'll put this in the chats. But yeah, again, very informal. And you're going to hear more from Celeste about why that, how Giving Tuesday has come to be, but that kind of decentralized governance is kind of a big part of Giving Tuesday. So that's it from the housekeeping side. Now I want to kind of shift into telling you guys a little bit more about Celeste. So I don't even think I've told you this, Celeste. I first heard you speak, I think like 2 or 3 years ago when the community summit was in Dallas. And she got up there and shared at the time, I think you were still with the group in Austin. I live here, I give here. And she got up and shared the most inspiring story about how they were just on a mission in Austin to make Austin, I think, the most generous city in the country. Sounded like at the time, Austin, who was like super hip and well-known, was kind of progressive and ahead of everyone on a lot of curves, was pretty far behind some of your peer cities in Texas in giving and philanthropy. And that the story that she told about the creative things that they did as an organization and then for Giving Tuesday were just so inspiring. Fast forward, she's since left the organization and is now a part of the Giving Tuesday organization itself. So the national organization that helps kind of facilitate Giving Tuesday nationally and globally. So I just thought it was such a small world when those kind of two things came together, that I remembered hearing her speak and being so inspired years ago. And now she's their director of communities at Giving Tuesday. So I think you've been there since about February. Have gotten Giving Tuesday now under your belt in the new role, and is here today to just kind of share with us overview of the movement, some of the big trends and recommendations that they have coming out of Giving Tuesday. But suffice it to say, she has an incredible experience, really creative ideas in my opinion, and I really look forward to hearing what she's going to share with us today. So with that, we'll hand it over to Celeste.
Thank you, Abby, for that introduction. And you're right, a small world. And little did I know when I was standing up there in Dallas that many years ago that I was actually going to be talking about Giving Tuesday and bigger than what was happening in Austin. So hello, everybody. I am grateful to be here. Hopefully you can, I have not messed up here we go. Let's see. I'm going to go back just a second. Can everybody? There we go. So as Abby said, I am with Celeste with Giving Tuesday. I'm grateful to be here. We are, as Abby said, CHA Gives has been, evolved for many years, and we're one of the first community campaigns of Giving Tuesday. And what I'm so grateful to be here today is to talk about just some of the learnings of the last 8 years that Giving Tuesday. So Giving Tuesday hasn't been around that long compared to how things have mobilized in Chattanooga. And we are grateful for the leadership of the United Way and all the organizing group that has put this together over the years. To Abby, Ada, thank you so much for having us. to be here to talk a little bit about the movement and then how it relates to you in Chattanooga for your organization, how it can be a useful day for you. We know that many of you are focused on a million things right now. And given the current climate, I know everyone is frankly overwhelmed. But I hope by the end of our hour together that you are able to have a sense of how you can make this day useful and effective for you. Many of you have participated for years, as Abby said. I think there's some of you who this might be your first time in maybe working with Chaw Gives or being part of the campaign in this way. You may have tried a Giving Tuesday effort for your own organization at some point, but what we hope today is that you are crafting something that is meaningful for your organization, for where you are. And anytime I do these presentations, I really, I've been in your shoes. I have fundraised during Giving Tuesday as an organization. I have led a community campaign for Giving Tuesday, and I now work for Giving Tuesday. And so I have been part of almost all the elements. A donor during Giving Tuesday, what has, inspired me, who's in the sector, to want to give as well. So I hope that by the end of this, you can walk away with something that is meaningful to you. My advice always is start where you are. Maybe it's trying a new thing, but don't change things wholesale. But if you're already doing a campaign, maybe it's already adding something new. Or maybe this is day one for you and you're just starting to figure out, like, what is Giving Tuesday? So we're going to take a little step back down memory lane and talk a little bit about the movement as a whole, but then get really tactical about how you craft a good campaign. And I'm actually going to be referencing a guide, and it's a planning guide. And I'm going to actually throw it right here into the chat. And just to have it there so I don't forget, but just know we're going to get to it. So you don't have to start reading it or anything like that. And this is just as a reference. Hopefully I put in the right, step-by-step guide. Okay, good, great. So again, Giving Tuesday. What is this day? What is the point of this day? And the reason I like to take a step back during these conversations is you may know a lot about the day, but then there are a lot of misconceptions out there about what Giving Tuesday's intention really was. Again, it was created simply as a day to encourage people to do good. We've been doing this for 18 years and we have learned a lot of things along the way. I started bringing Giving Tuesday to Austin probably 3 or 4 years into the movement. What happens in year one looks very different than what happens in year 4 or 5. So take a deep breath, figure out what works for you for 2020, and then we go from there. But the day, again, is intended for all forms of generosity and generosity as a whole, and honoring all the ways that someone can give. And so it's really, unfortunately or fortunately, considered a fundraising Tuesday in most people's minds. And fundraising is an important component of our work. I get it. But it also is hopefully a chance in the next hour to open up your eyes to maybe all possibilities of the day and how it might, some new idea might materialize for your organization. But again, the whole point of the day is to get where? It's to get to a point where generosity and celebrate what is already happening, generosity that's happening at the heart of our society, and really building a more just and generous world. Giving Tuesday is celebrated worldwide. It is in cities and countries all over the world. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But the point of the day was to create this day to not only redefine who can be a giver, but also who is a recipient of generosity. And that means everyone can. Everyone has something to give. And anyone can be a recipient of good in order to create, again, be at the heart of a pillar of a society, whether it's your local community or whether it's the world as a whole, to create a more just and generous world. So giving happens all the year round. Why Giving Tuesday? Why on this day? A lot of people know this day was created after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday. But really, Giving Tuesday has evolved now into something that is in a whole bunch of countries. It's also celebrated every Tuesday, every day. Every Tuesday can be Giving Tuesday. And that's what we hope, is that somebody wakes up on a Tuesday morning and it's like, what am I doing good for the world today, or for myself, or for my family, or for my neighborhood? And that's really our hope with Tuesday, using Tuesday. Now that we go into other countries, Giving Tuesday, Tuesday after Cyber Monday, Black Friday after Thanksgiving, none of that makes any sense to anybody but the United States. So it's really great to see how it has evolved, but what is the core is generosity. And generosity takes many forms and it has different words in different countries. And it's so great to see how that is expanded. But again, it's a day to put a flag in the ground to have a worldwide ritual of giving. And so how do we congregate? How do we organize? We organize as cities, states, and towns. A lot of these are community campaigns like the one we're talking about today with Chaw Gives, the one I ran in Austin, Texas. This is a picture of Georgia Gives, and Georgia is a whole state campaign. And so we have a lot of campaigns that I work with that are city, state, and towns. There's 240 of them in the United States, and we also organize in 70 countries. So as I said, there are 70 countries that are doing some version of a Giving Tuesday, but it may not be called Giving Tuesday. And it's all translated and the hearts all look different. And the language is different and the calls to action are different, but we are all celebrating generosity. We rally around causes. So there's actually groups that organize nationally around a particular cause, like Giving Zoo Day. It's a bunch of zoos all over the nation that gather together and create one campaign under Giving Zoo Day. You go to their site and you can find a zoo in your neighborhood or your state to give to. And then we also have coalitions, and these are organized groups that coalesce around a culture or an identity or some other affinity group, and create a campaign that is meaningful for and by the people of that culture or that community. And we have quite a few of those, like Latinx Gives, LGBTQ Gives, Muslim Gives, Sikh coalitions. We have a lot of coalitions that coalesce around an identity. And what are all of these made of? Of individuals. And how Giving Tuesday is powered is by individuals demonstrating generosity. This is a picture from from the very first Giving Tuesday, and it really encapsulates the meaning of the day, where anyone can be a giver and anyone can be a recipient of generosity. This woman, we still don't know her name. We want to put it out on social media and find this woman because she really got it, year one, that she knows that she is not famous or has $1 million, but she knows that she can change lives on this day. And yes, the day's big. It's a big fundraising day that we have said, and it has evolved that way. And sorry, I don't know how to apparently use a pointer. I don't know what happened to that. Nope. See if I can go back one. If not, it's a lot of money. Okay, there you go. 1.9 billion is, the results from Giving Tuesday in 2019. And again, this was a first year opportunity to not only capture what was happening monetarily, but it was also capturing all the offline, what was happening online, but also capturing what was happening offline during that day. And had an opportunity to have data sources to really understand the power of the day. So yes, the day is big, and there is a huge percentage of people participating on this day. But what this shows you is that we were taking into account not only dollars, but also volunteerism and other forms of giving. Again, people giving in ways that were meaningful to them on this day. And so while, yes, the day is big, I feel like this is the magic here of why any giving, a call to action that's happening on a particular day or a season is that people give, and specifically give during Giving Tuesday, because they are part of a bigger group of people doing good on that day. So we always reflect on why we think, what the data is telling us, what surveying is telling us of why this day, and then our leader network of telling us why this day works for a community. And it comes out of what we feel are the core values of this movement. It is coming from a place of optimism and abundance versus scarcity and collectivism and not individualism. And really it is an open sourced movement, as Abby was saying. People just take it and interpret it in the way that is meaningful to them. But the emphasis around generosity in all forms is key. And a lot of our campaigns, some of them are very focused on fundraising, but there are a lot of other campaigns that have other elements and other calls to action. But everyone is and has the ability to give and to receive generosity on this day or any other day. But this is what we're hoping this movement is teaching people. And that while it is a huge global campaign, and I talked about the 70 plus countries, the idea here is that making it a hyper local movement by having community campaigns and community leaders like Cha Gives and United Way, who are bringing it to their community in a way that is meaningful and authentic, is how this movement grows. We are a distributed leadership. I am one of 10 people at GivingTuesday headquarters that are full-time employees. Actually, I don't even think there's 10 of us. I got to count, but the way that this works is because of leaders and leadership, like your leaders with Cha Give, who are putting their time, energy on a project that is on the side of their desk to bring generosity to their community. So we have this amazing network of these leaders that we bring together to learn from. We are not the experts. You are the experts. We're just providing kind of a platform to learn and to experiment. And that is a hallmark of GivingTuesday, is to learn across the sector. We try a bunch of things that work and try a bunch of things that don't work. And that is just as valuable to us. So we love hearing success stories, but we also love hearing something that didn't maybe work out just right. Because at the core, we do believe that giving is the mechanism that we use to create a community that we want to live in. And the community that we want to live in is thriving, and we all know that, and we're all in this sector. But the only way that this community, we're going to bring ourselves together, the only way we're going to create the community that we want and not what we were, is by coming together and being all hands on deck. And the community, in order to thrive, depends on you, who we consider the frontline responders in this crisis. I know there has been a lot of use of this word and a lot of association of this word with just organizations that are providing critical needs, whether it's COVID related or whether it's economically related or whether it's housing or basic needs. But we feel that every organization in our ecosystem in the nonprofit community is vital to creating a community in which we all want to live. And it's really imperative for us to continue to demonstrate our value as an organization and imagine and helping people imagine a day when your organization is no longer part of the community. So what we've seen and what we know is that while 2020 has proven to be quite a doozy, to say it lightly, what's at the core is generosity and building action around generosity, and helping us not only overcome isolation and fear and division, but again, moving us forward to creating a more just and generous world. So why this day? Why should you use this day? Well, GivingTuesday is one of the 3 days in the 365 days a year that donors, individuals are actually looking to support organizations and to do good. So how do we capitalize on this day? How is it possible to use this day in a way that works for you as an organization? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share, a tiny bit about all the ways that you can activate on this day. But I also then, and why, and things to think about, and then kind of walk into getting really tactical with the workbook in a second. So as I said, GivingTuesday is one of the 3 years. How do you present yourself as an option on this day? Well, there really is no wrong way to activate for GivingTuesday, because there are a whole lot of possibilities. There is, everyone asks me or asks the team or asks anyone who's done GivingTuesday for a while, what is the right way to do GivingTuesday? What is the formula? What is the, secret sauce? And I sadly don't have all of the answers of a secret sauce, because there are a million right ways to do this. I'm providing all of this as food for thought and providing some organizing structure, but there is no prescription here of great success. And so I hope you take what you can and how you interpret this information and make it, again, meaningful for your organization, because there are many, many ways to participate and do this day. So this is just a random listing, or not random, but a listing. It's not exhaustive is what I should say. Not an exhaustive list of how communities and individual nonprofits activate and use GivingTuesday. There's a lot that do direct fundraising. They might be kicking off their campaign for year end. They might be ending a campaign. They might be using that day as a flag in the ground during some sort of appeal process. And that's great and that's fine. But maybe is there a way to use this day in a special way? Why this day is special? Is it a certain, match, or is there an added component on this day? Like, you want people to pledge not only dollars, but volunteer time and capturing and garnering volunteer pledge hours for next year. Is there a way to be thanking your donors on this day? We have a lot of communities who might be doing a Gives Day or some sort of financial activation the month before. So how do we use Giving Tuesday as a day to thank and honor the people who support your organization? How do you honor your staff and those that have been with you through a very hard year? Is there some sort of storytelling that is unique that you could be doing leading up to maybe something you're doing at the end of the year with your appeal, and telling really good stories about not only your donor community, but also those that you are impacting and affecting? And then, or is there some sort of virtual experience, some sort of, especially arts organizations and organizations that I know are finding unique ways to present their material and their work in very unique ways? Is there a way to collaborate with other organizations and do some sort of virtual experience on that day? So these are just, again, not an exhaustive list, but a list nonetheless of things to maybe start thinking about. But how you can use the lift and the megaphone of the day to amplify what you might be already doing. But what I do say is, again, work with where you are. You don't have to spin up some sort of special effort, completely separate effort if you're already doing something. Maybe there's adding a new dimension or element to something you're already doing that will that might resonate with a new set of people, or people you don't necessarily have access, you haven't accessed or haven't been able to tap before. And or is it just adding some sort of simple activation that again will use you under this umbrella of CHA Gives that might be really helpful for your efforts or achieve another goal of yours for your organization? Because what we know is that the more people are given opportunities in all the ways to give, they don't do one or the other, they do both. And this is our data that shows, and what we know is that people who are given, when people are given lots of different ways to engage, it correlates with higher donations. And so, is there an opportunity here to do something new? Again, we've all seen this. We're all development professionals, been in this business for a really long time, and we've seen this ladder a million times, but that is really the premise here of when you give people a lot of ways to engage with your organization, you're really moving them along this ladder and going from transaction to transformation. And when I was running things in Austin, and I really struggled with this, we had a website that had 700 organizations, and we promoted donations. Earlier in the year, we had a giving day, and how we used Giving Tuesday was very different. But I always got, when using that a giving day or a day of giving to promote a financial campaign or fundraising campaign, the power of the small dollar. There were so many people who were like, I am doing this work for $25 gifts or $50 gifts. Should I be doing this? Is this worth it? Yes, it is worth it. And why it's worth it even more so this year than other years is those are the donations that are actually on the rise right now. So gifts of under $250 in the first quarter of 2020 are significantly up compared to major donors of gifts of $1,000 or more. There is power in this, and if you're able to harness them and move them along this ladder and give them different ways to engage in ways that are meaningful to them, it will, be hopefully a source that helps sustain your work. Again, those donations under $250 are really on the rise, and people are looking to give. So the donor reports, and I'm going to put something in the Slack channel really quick. I normally don't do this because I'm not that skilled. So this messes up. Let's see. I'm going to throw this in here. This is a report or a kind of a lessons learned based off of, or observations based off of a report that was recently shared or distributed by Fundraising Effectiveness Project last week. And it was our observation, our data team works very closely and works on this project and provided observations. And there's some key, in that link is a blog post that kind of talks about the highlights of that report and about giving and the trends of giving. And while we can never predict the future and we have no idea what December 1st holds for us, especially in the US, we can at least know that based on data, people are still generous, people are still giving. So let's figure out a way to make yourself a viable and valued voice that people want to give to on this day. And I would, again, I'd be remiss not to mention that this day could also be an opportunity to try something new. I did this a lot in Austin. We tried something new all the time. Again, not everything worked. Big fat lead balloons sometimes. But we learned something from it. And this was a day to experiment and try something. Maybe it's new messaging. Maybe it's a new tactic. Maybe it's a new approach. Maybe it's working with somebody new for the first time to help you on this project, collaborating with a new group of people and seeing what comes of it. But this is an opportunity and a day that you can do it. When we're talking about experimentation, we did a real big experiment in May. So Giving Tuesday Now was a day that we stood up as a community of leaders. We heard from our community of leaders nationally and internationally. It was the height of the pandemic in the spring when everybody was being affected around COVID and financial issues, situations, and everywhere, in every country. We already saw lots of spontaneous generosity happening. And in that conversations with our leaders, sorry about that, hit something. After hearing from a lot of people, they were like, what is Giving Tuesday going to do? What could we do to galvanize and use this network to create a day of solidarity and generosity? Generosity was already happening at such a grand scale, grassroots effort, grand scale way around the world. How do we stand up a day? So we talked to our leaders about it and we stood up a Giving Tuesday. Never have we done a Giving Tuesday twice in 1 year, but 2020 proved to be the year that we needed to do it. And it proved to be a really good year. So in 4 short weeks, our community of leaders really rallied and created Giving Tuesday Now. Everybody, the community leaders that we act and individual nonprofits activated in many different ways. Again, many did things that were different than what they do for a normal Giving Tuesday. But what it showed, at least from a data financial perspective, was that people were being generous. And so for Giving Tuesday Now, which was on May 5th, 103 million donations were given online. This was just online. And again, that compared to 2019, isn't that too far off? Again, December 2019, in May of 2020, showed that people were still interested in giving and how important organizations were to them. So that's just a kind of a lessons learned of trying something new. That was trying something new in a really big way, but it is an opportunity to at least demonstrate that what we learn during this is what makes a campaign relevant. And so that's what we're going to get to and get into that workbook. Our observations of what campaigns were standing out during this time had at least 3, if not 4 of these elements. Was relevance and the organization being able to really demonstrate and communicate their value to to the community and why their organization is really important to the community at large, and what you were doing in a way that to be relevant for the moment. And every organization has kind of that value statement. It didn't have to be just organizations that were providing basic needs at the time or medical needs at the time. Authenticity, really being honest with your donor community and your giver community about the challenges that you are facing and how you are responding to those and what you need. And of course, that sense of urgency that there is no way that we can get this done without you, and being really clear about that in your messaging. And then of course, bonus was creativity and really trying something new during this day. So what I wanted to share with you is a couple of highlights here about, realizing I'm looking at time because I also want to leave time for questions. So if you have questions, make sure you're putting them in chat or write them down so we can answer them for you. Well, I don't know if I have all the answers, but I'll try really hard. The workbook that you have that I put into the chat is a step-by-step guide. Some of you may be well past this and already have your campaign and ready to blow and go and you're set. But for those of you who aren't, it is not too late. You are just fine. Don't worry. There are people who are cracking this book open a week before Giving Tuesday. I don't recommend that, but I'm just telling you that as commentary when people get very overwhelmed, because we are all overwhelmed. We're all overtapped. So take parts of this and distill it to something that works for you. So let's talk about how you build a campaign. And hopefully somebody who's been doing this for a long time can garner a new idea. For those of you who are just starting, these are some key elements to think about. You may not have all of them year one, but your campaign can always grow. But if you approach your campaign like an event, it helps you really set theme, and it helps you understand who you're inviting to the party, what kind of activities you're going to be doing, and kind of those calls to action, what kind of memories you're going to be sharing, what kind of pictures, visuals do you want to gather, making sure that you have those elements of your campaign that allow you to capture that energy. And it's hard because physical events are not necessarily happening. Depending on where you are, in the part of the world, what's happening in DC might look very different than what's happening in Chattanooga or in Austin, Texas, or anywhere else in between. And so, but event planning, when looking at that, it really helps you when you think about it as an event and you think about like, what is your theme? It helps you really narrow down what is also your strategies for planning that event and what kind of skills and voice and money and resources you're going to need in order to pull this party off. And that unifying theme, as you'll see right here, it says a unifying theme, which is your goal, can create excitement and engagement and a framework and for which you make decisions. So it might help you. For example, if you decided it was a Cinco de Mayo party, you're not going to use St. Patrick's Day parade, St. Patrick's Day decorations. So that's just a framework that you would use when setting tone of your event or your campaign, and it helps you make decisions based on that. Number one. If there is anything out of these 10 steps that you learn or that you take with you, is really think about your goal for your campaign. Your goal is going to be so important, not only because it's something to be measured against, but it really is going to help, again, that framework in which you use to make decisions. There's a lot of potential goals out here that are listed in this chart, and they don't have, when you think of a goal, think a little bit about how you think you're going to measure that goal, because what we know is there is a huge percentage difference between the success of a campaign that has a goal and the success of a campaign that did not have a goal. And so it's just getting a little more crystal clear on what your goals, you can have more than one goal, but what are your goals for your campaign? Because this is where it starts everywhere. And when you're thinking about your goals, think about, again, if you're thinking about monetary goals, what kind of donor, what kind of monetary donations are you going to be looking for? And again, I go back to, don't underestimate that power of the small gift. This is a picture of, I don't know where Jamie got this, but anyway, it's a picture of Michael Bloomberg. The picture on the top is him, his first year out from Johns Hopkins University, where he went to school, and his first gift to the university was $5. Now he's given billions of dollars to the school, but it was all about nurturing that small gift and the power of that. Now, I know not all of us are going to have a Michael Bloomberg donor, never had one myself. But I think it's just an example and a story. And what you glean from that story is that it is, again, the power of working with someone who gives you a small donation over time and moving them from that transaction to transformation. And so in your planning, if you have a financial goal and you're looking at small donations, what is your plan with those people after the campaign, after you garner those new donors? What are you going to do with them to move them along and to get them more engaged? Again, these are all one-on-ones, I know, from a fundraising perspective, but these are all the kinds of tactics that we know are really important, at least for Giving Tuesday. And again, think about the young people. So a lot of people who participate on this day are young. 82% of the people who are aware of Giving Tuesday and participate are the 18 to 34-year-old. There's big percentages in other places, but that's a pretty young group to be thinking about. What can you do with your campaign to speak to that crowd? And who is it that you can actually engage in your planning process that will help you speak to that crowd? And when we talk about, it's planning an event or a party, setting a goal or a theme to your party, but then how are you going to plan it and coming up with a timeline? It doesn't have to be as long as this. These are just some ideas of like where, giving you an idea of when, building a calendar between the next 7 weeks. So Giving Tuesday, 7 weeks from yesterday. So what is it in the next 7 weeks that you want to accomplish? And these are just listing out some of those organizational things to think about, to get organized and to share with your convening group that you're working with. And don't forget to share with also the team at Chalk Give, so they know what you're doing. Building your team. Again, this goes back to whatever your goal is going to build out your strategies, and what you whatever your goal is will help determine what kind of strategies. But in order to execute on those strategies, you need to have the right people in place, or you have to figure out like who in you map it out, and who in your ecosystem is going to do what to participate. I have people, some nonprofits. So I worked with a lot of nonprofits in Austin when I was helping them plan their campaigns, and not all of them used all of these, buckets. Some people for their Giving Tuesday campaign had their board involved and maybe some amplifiers. The others, used, had a ton of community partners and had a very specific ask for their board members. So it's just figuring out like who all in your ecosystem can help promote your campaign and be a part of your campaign, and get specific about who's going to do what. And it can be very simple. These don't have to be really big, huge asks either, but it all comes together to build out your campaign. So think about who it is in your ecosystem that's going to help amplify the strategies and the goal that you have with your campaign. And make it special. I already mentioned before, even if you're already planning to use the day, you already have a fundraising campaign, what is it, and you plan for year end? What can you do on Giving Tuesday, December 1st, to make your campaign look special, be different than any other time of year, and galvanize the energy that the day brings? So are you going to have a different name for your campaign? Is there going to be any sort of visuals? And think about it, this is showing you in-person visuals. We know that a lot of things aren't going to happen in person. So what are your visuals online? And what are your taglines going to be? What hashtags are you going to use? If you were going to use a hashtag, a branded hashtag, in addition to the Child Gives or the Giving Tuesday hashtag to track your own progress, think about that, and something that you could use for years to come. Making it inspiring. So I'd say next to the goal nugget that you really need to think about for your campaign is developing a really good campaign narrative. And it is thinking about what could be inspiring in those iconic stories of client, staff people, or volunteers to help make it inspiring. Is it incorporating a challenge, a very specific challenge, to something that you have specifically for that day? Or is it a particular program that you are focused on, or a project within your organization that you're focused on? If you're not looking to engage and have people support you for the organization as a whole, is there a particular program that really has a great story that you could be sharing during this day? That is what makes you stand out when you create a campaign. And people ask all the time, like, what is, there's a lot of noise that happens on Giving Tuesday. How am I different? How do I make myself different? And by telling these inspiring stories, I know it's really hard for us because we want to share all the stories and we want to share all the data. I've been there. I want to do that all the time too. But it's getting really crystal clear on what are some of those iconic stories. And this is just an example of an iconic story. Jamie uses, my team uses this a lot because this was a story that an organization used in the early years of Giving Tuesday, actually, in the organization Project Renewal, used this iconic story of this gentleman, and his name was, I always forget his name. What was his name? I think his name, Harry, yes. I was about to say Henry. Harry. So Harry's story, quick video with iPhone, probably, I think, or not highly produced video. But they attached this story and made it really specific on the money that they were raising on this day was going to service 1,475 nights of shelter for people like Harry. And they made it very specific. And from what I understand, that people still think about this campaign and in this organization and think of Harry specifically. Here is about, again, getting creative. Is there an opportunity? Oh, I don't know. These things have a life of their own. Sorry about that. Let's see. We can go back. Because we talk about creativity a little bit. There we go. Creativity. Is there a way to add a different dimension to your work that could be that would work given the current times, like these virtual races and challenges that are happening? People are bringing their offline events online, and is there a way to do that for Giving Tuesday that you could do? And then there's also bringing it to life and thinking about those visual assets. It is okay to repurpose stuff that you already have. Or is there a call to action that you can do on your social channels or through your emails or your phone tree, whoever it is, like if there is a way to get people to do visuals that you could use within your campaign. For example, Austin, the group that I ran in Austin, they recently did this generosity challenge where a person did a generous deed, took a picture and posted it and tagged one of their friends to do another generous deed or generous good, take a picture of it, put it on social. They all use the same hashtag. But what that did was then the organization was able to pull that hashtag and pull all these pictures that people were posting about the things that they were doing or the things that they were talking about or the small videos that they were making, and repurpose that content for themselves as an organization. And so is there a way, and it doesn't have to be sophisticated, and you can start with your board or a couple of volunteers, but is there a way to get generated content by others and to help you with these visual assets? But then again, it is okay to repurpose assets that you already have, but maybe framing it with a different story. And then inviting others is an important opportunity here for them to make a difference, not only for your organization, but during Giving Tuesday. And making that inspiring ask. And that's what you're doing on this day, is you're inviting others, giving them the opportunity to give and to support the impact that you are making as an organization. And so making that ask very inspiring and very crystal clear and very finite and specific as you can. It's going to be really, really important. I'm running out of time. Okay, so, but sharing the work. Again, this goes back to what is your specific ecosystem look like? Who can do what very well? Again, you don't necessarily have to have somebody in all of these boxes. These are just ideas of people that you can tap to do maybe one or two things for you during your Giving Tuesday campaign, and making it that great experience. If you are doing something online, test your tech, do tech checks, and making sure that your website is working. Your donate button is very clear. It is where it needs to be, right on the front page. Wherever you're sending people, they're not having to click all over the place to figure out how to volunteer or to donate, or where to drive up and drop off their good, or whatever it is that you're asking them to do. And building that excitement. Again, with challenges or matches, if you're doing some sort of fundraising event, to gamify it. In the, I think it's in the guide. If not, I'm going to throw in another guide, which is our complete nonprofit toolkit. Within it has a lot of this step-by-step stuff, but I wanted to get very granular with step-by-step at this point. We're 7 weeks out. How can you stand up some of these ideas? So we have a complete toolkit, though, that has this 6-week communications plan, and it basically, and then this link here, and I'll get a PDF version of this PowerPoint so we can share it. And it's kind of step by step of like what you're going to do with your email channels, social channels, whatever channel you have. What are you going to do with it to build up to the day? So these are just a couple of examples of people activating for Giving Tuesday now, just to give you some idea of how quick and low tech and added element to a campaign that people did. And so this is Chloe Thompson, who is one of our Giving Tuesday Spark leaders, which is our youth initiative. Rallied her friends with a little bit of seed funding to deliver during Giving Tuesday now, deliver learning kits to kids at local schools. But she worked with a nonprofit that was already doing food distribution in Los Angeles to get these kits to kids. Again, relatively quick activation, but at the end of the day, it was something that was meaningful to her community. Our community in New Jersey, South Jersey, was providing food for their undocumented families. They had about 200 families in their area that were not receiving services or resources, or not eligible to receive services or resources from the federal government, but needed food. A lot of them had lost work. And so they got together really quickly to activate. Again, this is an example of a coalition of a bunch of volunteer organizations and a couple of nonprofits that just rallied the troops, figured it out to do food distribution. They were planning to do it on that one day, and they were able to do it all through the summer because they were able to engage so many people and so many groups. And this is an example of a nonprofit, individual nonprofit, who, of course, like lots of us, our events have been canceled and used due to the pandemic. And so what the development officer did with this group, and which many of you might already be thinking of doing, was pivoting to a campaign at home, used some of her sponsors' dollars after, of course, asking them as a match instead of a sponsorship to a physical event, to raise money, engaged some of their volunteers to be peer-to-peer fundraisers. They had never done it before. They activated as one development person. I think there's 2 people in the organization as a whole, and organized and exceeded their expectations. So again, resources. This is that down. I'm gonna see if I can throw that in the chat for you. Nope, won't let me do that because I'm on another computer. But anyway, I will make sure that we get that in there. So these are just some toolkits for you that I have already thrown into the decks. I mean, into the Google chat. But I leave you with this. Let's see if I could go back. Did I mess this up? I'm so sorry. I know a lot of us are super duper overwhelmed, and super duper is not even the right word to use or the right terminology, but action is the only thing that we know, and we need to move forward, and we need to do what we can do and where we are to move forward. We don't know what December 1st will look like, but all we can do is plan, and all we can do is ask. And we know that people are willing and ready to help and to work because they want to help. And so it's us providing that value and that opportunity for them. And I'm really grateful for being here and have you guys having me here. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there were any, Abby or Ada. Sorry, it went really long.
No, that's fine. You had so much to share. We appreciate you sharing all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would just invite people, if you have, while we have her, if you want to ask a question, feel free to unmute and ask her a question. We have a couple minutes, not many, but we have a few.
Not many minutes. There's a question in the chat. How much are nonprofits spending to promote Giving Tuesday events? I think it really depends on how. I'll give my 2 cents, and if somebody else wants to give their 2 cents on how they're promoting, my 2 cents is it just depends on how Giving Tuesday fits within your strategy from a year-round perspective, and how much time and energy you're going to put into it. So I don't know if you meant spending as in time or spending as in money, but I think it just depending on what you have going on between now and then, and figuring out from a promotion perspective how much time you want to dedicate to it. But I don't know if others are more relevant for if you guys answer, any other nonprofits answer that question. Funds, social boosts, getting the word out. Does anybody have an answer on that?
I mean, in my experience, if you have the budget, it's certainly the budget and the experience. It's a dollar's worth spending. I don't know.
Hey, this is Karen with the Salvation Army. We're actually going to spend nothing, but what we did was we pulled together corporate sponsors who've agreed to be our influencers. They're going to share our message, sort of like a sponsorship that doesn't cost anything, if you will. And so we're promoting the partnership, and because they have a customer base of corporate customers, they're sharing out our message. So it won't cost us anything.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, Karen. One of the biggest successes that we've had is when we actually really intentionally ahead of time recruit ambassadors. Like, I'm talking like individuals. I'm thinking back to our an organization that was at before. We tapped like 4 of our board members who were just really active and good on, you know, had big networks on social media. And then I think 4 additional people who we just knew, and give them like really specific requests that day, and maybe even some collateral to share, but actually tapping them and saying, will you do this on that day? Really, I think gets a lot of traction. Okay, there's another question. How do you recommend approaching Giving Tuesday if we're already running our annual giving campaign? Good question. Celeste, do you have any thoughts?
Sure. I'll give my thoughts, and I'd love to hear if there's anybody else who has ideas. I think if you're already doing an annual giving campaign, you can use the day as a flag in the ground for something special, a kickoff, a day that you're calling the people who, if you've already opened it, and people who have already participated in giving, making sure your board and your volunteer calling people to thank them. It really just depends on your timing of your annual giving campaign, but I had a lot of nonprofits in Austin who would use it as a kickoff day of doing something different, like saying, hey, our annual campaign is coming up. And then they started either storytelling on that day. They asked people to volunteer, like, we're going to ask you for money, but we'd love your time. It really just depends on the length of your annual campaign, how you have it seated, and then either using the day within it or before it to kick it off, or use it in a totally different way that augments and complements your annual campaign.
This is Karen again. Sorry to jump in too much, but we're actually tying into our national campaign, which is Rescue Christmas. And so what we've done is we've actually looked at our donors and volunteers, and people who are listening and learning about us, and we're segmenting the campaign by engagement level. And so for us, the Giving Tuesday really targets those individuals who might want to volunteer. That's certainly a way that they can give on Giving Tuesday by signing up to ring bells, or they can give, and it doesn't have to be a lot. So these might be new givers that come into the engagement funnel for us. But then we've got because we like an integrated campaign, we've got an element of the national campaign for our major donors.
Love that. I love that. Anybody else? I'm writing all this stuff down because I always love hearing new ideas. Sorry. All right.
We also similarly, one year at a previous organization, we'd had an event a couple weeks before, a week before maybe, and we used the day only for thanking people. I realize that doesn't help your bottom line,
It
but
does. It's a long game, right?
a long
Though?
game, right?
Long game.
But it was such a fun, and I think kind of unexpected too. Like if it just works into your calendar, that was a fun year. We got good engagement. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's 2:00, y'all. Any other last minute?
Well, just know that we are here for you. We're here for you, Chalk Gives. We're here for you as an organization. You have any questions, or you ask the Chalk Gives team and they can reach out. We have all sorts of resources. Look on our website for nonprofit resources. It is under Giving Tuesday, nonprofit resources. But I gave you like the big ones. Like there's a lot on there, but I gave you like the ones that you could just really focus on.
Okay, so I'm going to be dropping the ball if I don't share the link for you guys. That was my one homework task I was supposed to do with y'all. Ada, can we share the link to Chad Gives to let the committee know if you're going to be participating? It's not like any kind of formal sign-up process, but we're also really curious. We're trying to come to the dollar amount that we should publicly kind of say is our community campaign goal. And we're trying to get an estimate for what people are targeting for their goals. So we put that in the chat. Yes, Ada, thank you. If y'all would take just like literally a minute and fill out that quick survey and let us know if you're going to be participating. And again, not holding you to it by any means, but just trying to get an estimate. And then day of and the day after, we'll be sending out some emails to everyone who did participate, again, with a quick Google form to let us know where you landed so we can tally it all up. It's all kept anonymous and aggregate, but to tally it all up and let the press and the community know how much we raised as a community. So, okay, with that, we really appreciate everyone's time, and we will be in touch. But thank you, Celeste. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Awesome. No problem. Good luck, everyone.
645,000 last year, to answer your question, Monica.